All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. On today's episode, I welcome on a very special guest. He is the head coach of Prout's boys basketball team. He is Coach Dean Felicetti. Coach, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Jeff. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Coach, I'm happy to have you on. I'm lucky to have you on. I appreciate you making the time for me and everything like that. How are
To
you?
interrupt you, by the way.
Yeah.
And I know Prout basketball is pretty prestigious, but when I'm following up after Jimmy Barron, Coach Martelli, and Coach Battle, you got to be hurting, my guy. You got me here. I
No.
feel terrible.
You're fine. You're fine.
Are you sure? Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there is a high school slant to this, right? Because I want to make sure that, those guys are okay. They're pretty good careers, but, Prout was in the mix.
I don't want to mention the other guests that I've had on earlier. I don't want to mention them, too.
But please don't. I don't want to hear it. I really don't. It's all about me today. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds really good. Great. But, hey, I'm glad to have you, though. I'm happy to get some high school coaches on and, for everyone, the listeners out there to get to know, you and other high school coaches out there. So
sure.
This is great. This is awesome. So I want to start at the beginning of your career, before even, what age did you start playing basketball?
Well, it was a lot different and not unlike, I think, some of the older coaches that you've had on. It wasn't, AAU was really not a thing for us. So it was mostly playing pickup, playing at the Y. There was some CYO around here, but it wasn't as structured as it was in the cities. So even here in Charahoe area, Westerly area, you could go play games as part of the CYO, but not as an official team. So you could assemble some kids within a certain age group and be represented by one particular church to play in certain tournaments. But that was really it. But that was, outside of that, it was, playing in the rec leagues. There was no, I'm from Ashway originally, and there was no Rhode Island youth basketball at the time. There was no Charahoe Youth Basketball League. So it was really wherever we could find places to play, we would play. Camps were a big thing as well, but there's still nothing like just going to play. And I think, back then it was a little bit different. I would say, you would go to a park and you would play for, until dark. That was our equivalent of AAU, back then anyway.
Yeah. Did you travel?
I was younger. I was definitely younger. Yeah, I was younger.
Did you travel to other courts to play or
Yeah, we did. We used to play at Washington Park in New London a lot when we were younger. Boone Street was great, and it still is. I mean, there's great competition there.
Yeah.
And we would do some churches, but for the most part, wherever we could get a gym or wherever we go outside and play, we would play.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
It was cool.
And how did you start getting the coaching bug? What was your first introduction to coaching that really, really got you hooked?
I would say one of the colleges I when I played at SUNY Adirondack, I actually, let me back up. I think before that, I was lucky enough to play for Coach Gleason when I was at Charahoe, and Coach Sinkowski. Coach Gleason, obviously in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So early on, I knew I had interest in coaching. And I think what happens is as you get older and, when my kids were born, I was still coaching to some extent at rec, but at that time, we had just started the bubble for AAU. So what happened was we started getting kids around the community and formed what was back then called the New England Cyclones before my kids realized they were better off playing for someone other than their dad. So at that point, so we had an AAU team, and then we also had some travel teams. So really got into it when the kids started getting into it, when they were in third grade.
Wow.
So we started right away, and thanks to guys like Bob Merritt and Pete Sloan, we started the Charahoe Youth Basketball League. So it was great. So we, it was funny at the time, we had two teams and we couldn't get enough kids from Charahoe to furnish the team. So we were pulling from other towns.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because when we entered, they wouldn't allow us into the Rhode Island the Rhode Island Youth Basketball League at the time, because they considered us a regional school, almost like an AAU team.
Yeah.
Until we went in the tournaments and got smacked by like 40th, and like, oh yeah, you guys can join us. So,
yeah, you guys are good.
That was the very beginning.
Yeah.
So I guess a long-winded answer is I started. I always had interest in not only playing but in coaching, as well as part of it self-serving to get my kids to play.
That's
so
awesome.
Ever since then, yep, and I can go over the path with you, but that was really it. I was really into it as a young age.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And like when you mentioned you started Charo Youth Basketball Association, like how like important was that to like that community and like everyone around the area?
It was huge. I think when we started, and good guys to talk to again are Pete Sloan, Bob Merritt. At the time, it was super important, but not that there was friction, but there was confusion between what that was versus, you have the Charleston rec basketball and you have Hopkinton rec basketball.
Yeah.
And to say to them, listen, we have tryouts and grab your best players. In their minds, it was, you're taking away from the rec teams.
Yeah.
But what we in working with them collaboratively over the last, I would say the last 3 years, or the first 3 years that we started, there were certain rules that were put in place that kids had to play rec to play travel. So it built a nice balance, for kids that wanted to play a little bit more competitive travel basketball. But like I said in the beginning, we had kids from all over. We had kids from Westerly, EWG. Because we couldn't get enough kids.
Yeah.
To the point that it just blew up. Then we had girls teams, and we really, it expanded so well. And it, went from there to, joining Reba, to summer leagues at Cristofaro, to it really took off.
Wow. That's amazing. That's really cool. That's really great for the kids of the community, the families and everything, like to get them.
Oh, it was great. Involved. And one thing, and I know I'm talking a ton here, but
no, you're great.
We also, what we did was, there was another tier underneath that competitive travel league, which was called the D League. And so you could essentially have kids that weren't on those super competitive A teams,
yep,
but still wanted to play a little bit more than rec, but play in D League. And what that meant was, if there were certain rules where you had to play man-to-man defense for a certain amount of time to teach your kids principles.
Yeah.
And at any point, and this is throughout the state, the D League, it's part of Reba.
Yeah.
And so what you could do as a coach, which I found very cool, you could stop the game in the middle of a game. It didn't matter the score, it didn't matter anything. Walk out onto the floor and have teaching moments and just coach. You have, it was really good for skills development. It's interesting because a lot of the better players, especially fundamentally, after playing in the D League for a few years, had the skill sets to move on to playing high school ball, playing what I mean. So it was really and I don't, just because I've lost touch, I don't know if that's still going on, but that was super helpful to the community around here and getting kids some of the fundamental structures that they needed.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's so important. I think just from being as well as a coach on seeing it on the other side, like I've seen kids with like no fundamentals whatsoever and they like trying out, and it's like you feel bad because like you're like, isn't this what the youth league or the instructional leagues are for? That's amazing that there's a D League and you can do that stuff to teach those kids that like this is how you play man-to-man defense. Like I mean it's crazy sometimes you have kids that come in and you're like, why are you taking like shooting with two hands? Yeah.
Right. Well, part of it is not to disparage the NBA, obviously they're nasty and they're freaks, but the first thing they do when they come in is grab a ball and chuck up a three.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, well, you do skills training all the time, and it starts, they start doing that in third grade.
Yeah.
And then all the way through, the first thing they do is they grab a ball and chuck up a three. It's like, all right, well, it's a little more to the game than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It drives me nuts sometimes. Even like some of the high school players I work with, like, until you can like consistently make that, let's just like start at the mid range and like work our way back, like I know you want to be Steph Curry or like,
of course.
Yeah.
And it's also the way the game has changed. I mean, also, it's, there's, you can break down the game, especially statistically on your shooting percentages for threes. Some teams chuck up a lot of threes, some attack the basket more, but it really is catered to whatever you have for your team, like what works for them.
Yeah. And a lot of it, I think like analytics plays into the like
huge,
big thing of everything now, but like it's crazy.
Yeah. And part of it too, I think from an analytics standpoint to your, like you were mentioning, it does hold kids accountable. Like we'll typically, we have somebody that does our stats. Actually, he's great. He's a senior this year. We'll miss him when he graduates, but and it's all with the iPad, and we break down everything, and like a lot of teams do.
Yeah.
We'll come in with on our whiteboard, and we won't write players' names, but we'll put up shooting percentages, mid-range jumpers, layups, threes, and the guys that are the shooters that are shooting 27%. You're going, yes, you're shooting 27%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it does help too, because it helps with the plus minus to see. I mean, all the things that and I'm sure a lot of your listeners are aware about. But it does help kind of paint a picture where your team is statistically.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very interesting how much that has played into it, and like how much it's changed the game that we've known that was just like post play and like mid range, and now it's like everyone's just like Steph Curry's, your Dame Lillard's, and like playing small ball now, which is great. It's positionless basketball now.
There it is. I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
Stretch five.
Stretch five. Yeah. I mean, don't go by the Rockets motto, but like,
get me going with the NBA.
Yeah, exactly. But how did you get started with Charahoe basketball? Because that's like you were JV coach there.
Sure. So I had I was working with the youth program at the time, and I was made aware of a position being open through the head coach at the time, Corey Downey.
Yeah.
He had mentioned that there was a position open, and thought it was an absolute perfect fit. Because of my roots with the youth league in Charahoe, being able to get kids into the program and beef up their numbers.
Yeah.
But to be able to coach under Coach Downey, where, I mean, I've learned more from him than any coach, not to disparage my college coach, but, high school is a lot different. And he, I was lucky enough to get that position and, learn from him about a little bit more about the game than I really needed to learn, because coaching and playing are so different.
Oh my God.
It's so different. And so it was during a summer league game, found out they were looking for somebody and applied, and then that was it.
That's awesome. And what was your time like at Charahoe? I know you guys won a state championship.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
And, and it's not even, and it's not even about like the coaching aspect of it, but it's the relationships you build not only with other coaches, but the players. To sit back now and look at some of those players that now have kids, that are married, that are guys, and I'm sure a lot of your coaches will tell you it's actually very cool. And it's all those lessons outside of basketball and still having those relationships. Because, and this is, we're not like, especially at Prout, we're not unlike a lot of other high school teams where, the bond that the high school team builds it's unlike others, where I feel like, if I were to get a flat tire today, I can call on a teammate from the 80s, say, hey, I have a flat tire. I haven't talked to him in 20, 30 years. I can call and be like, all right, I'll be there. I'll help you. And that's something that, is a little bit more than basketball. But at the same time, I think it fostered the relationships, especially starting out at Charahoe. And again, luckily under Coach Downey, to kind of build a lot of those relationships.
That's really cool. Yeah, it's funny you said that too, because I think there's something special about being on a high school team together. You go through like a grueling, like, high school basketball, you play a lot of games in one season, like in a span of like 2 to 3 months, and it's crazy. So you build a relationship. You're with those guys more than anything.
Yeah. Yep.
It's crazy. And what was it like to win that state championship and to be at the buzzer and then be all over the news as well?
It was crazy. It was fun. And, and it's, it's almost like a movie to some extent, not the way, the way we finished, but even leading up to that, like you can still see video of, we're going up in the bus and there's fans lined up all in Richmond, holding up signs, wishing us luck. We come back, there's a parade, a pizza place puts our names all over it, gives us free pizza, and we explain to the kids, like they may forget about it for a little while when they go off to college and do their things, but it's as soon as they, walk in the gym and see that banner, it all comes back.
Yeah.
But they also have the luxury of YouTube.
Yeah,
You know, and they have, you know, ESPN, and, you know, because that was, you know, you take a state championship and couple it with the way it was ended, you know, with in historic nature, you know, it definitely was very emotional, I think, for everybody.
Yeah, it was crazy because I remember watching it, and I think my boss at the time, her kids had attended at Chero as well too, and it was just like it was crazy to like see everything and then like hear her talk about it. It was just wild, a wild like scene on that was happening. I was like, man, this is all over the place.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. We, you know, Coach Downey and the players, the school's getting called constantly by, you know, news stations, and, you know, it was good. And you know, in you know, Coach Downey, obviously, who drew up the play, but also summarized everything beautifully at the end. He said, you know, the emotions that the kids had to go through in a 1 minute span, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot as an adult. Now you know, you have kids anywhere from 14 to 18 that, you know, go through that, that situation. And it definitely will build a memory they'll have forever.
That's awesome. And the way you described it too, when you guys came back, sounds like a Friday Night Lights thing.
Oh, it's great. It's like
Yeah.
a movie. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. You know, the police escort, and it was really neat.
That's so cool. That's I'm jealous, but that's really cool.
That was good.
You have the championship ring, and you are like, is it somewhere hidden?
No, we don't. You know what? I hope Coach Downey listens to this. We wanted to do rings. I did. He didn't, and we have jackets. But there you go. I told him I might get rings anyway. Yeah, that's.
You got to do rings.
Listen, I have this one. I know you're a URI guy.
Yeah, yeah.
You have to have your A10 championship ring.
Oh, wow, look at that. How'd you get that?
Every season ticket holder gets it. They're freebies.
Oh, my God.
I have it on my mantle.
Yeah.
You know, no offense to Coach Cooley, but let's go Rams. Rody.
Rams. I'm trying to get him on the show. We got to keep that. Yeah.
Hey, listen, you can remind him. He might have smacked us in basketball, but I smacked him in volleyball. So just tell him. He'll remember. Just say Coach Felicetti from Prout. He'll laugh.
Oh, all right. Yeah. I'll give him a heads up. I'll let him know. What'd you do? Did you spike the ball at him? Or?
Oh, I don't remember. But, yeah, I remember his godson actually played for me at Prout, and he now plays at Curry. Filthy point guard, Jonathan Joel.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very good, strong player. And he obviously has a relationship with Coach Cooley, and, you know, it's really very cool.
That's really cool. That's awesome. That's so cool. And now you switch. What was your decision to go to Prout? Because I know that you're there. Did you just feel like it was time for your turn as head coach?
No, I think I could. You know, I would still happily be at Charahoe, but I think, you know, my older son. I was coaching my sons in high school, and, you know, you get to a point where it may not be the most healthy relationship when you're, you know, you try and you say that you won't bring basketball home with you.
Yeah.
And I will say my relationship with my older son, you know, Gabe, who made the shot before the shot in the state title, he very low key, and, you know, that was a little bit easier. But even, you know, by the time he was a senior, I wanted him to have his own experiences. And my younger son and I just can't coach him because we just yell at each other. So we're both very, very stubborn.
Yeah.
So, you know, when he yells back at me, why don't you cover him then in 8th grade? Then I know it's my time to get out.
Yeah.
And then the proposition opened. I actually talked to Coach Downey about it. He thought it was a great opportunity. I thought it was a great opportunity. It's right here, right down the street too, which is good for me. But also, they are, for not being a traditional community school, they have community values.
Yeah,
which is it's great. I mean, it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up, and you know, it's best decision I think I made from a coaching standpoint, you know, at that time, moving on to Prout.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Did you ever play Charahoe and play against your son and coach against your son?
I did, and actually, you can look up some of the articles. My younger son this year, who we held to 0 points, only scored 2 points, and they just happened to be the game-winning basket.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
You have no idea the banter on that. So there's actually a pretty good article written about it where he we held him to 0. And, we did a pretty good job on Levi King as well, who's playing at Woodstock. But those guys know how to win. And, they've been playing together for years, and Coach Downey does a great job with those guys. And, he just happened to score one basket, and it was the game winner. So,
oh, wow.
yeah, believe me, I still hear about it. I heard it in the lines and handshake lines. Believe me, it's very interesting. He'll bring it up every now and then.
I was like, does it come up at like Thanksgiving dinner every once in a
Oh
while?
yeah, he'll okay. Remember when I had the game winner against you? Like, oh god, go mow the lawn.
Yeah, past that. We got to get past that.
But it was the article is actually very well written. It was great, and I obviously it killed us to lose, but I guess if we're going to lose that game, which was a very competitive game, if we're going to lose by a couple points, might as well be to him, I guess.
Yeah, I guess take that one, I guess.
Yeah.
You just have to say you live with him. You had to let him have it, right?
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
You got to remember, his mom is in the mix, my wife, so I got to be real careful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
delicate balance of keeping everyone happy.
That's right. You still want to come home to dinner on the table. So
it probably wasn't a good look for us to start out in a junk defense and try to put some man on him. That was pretty aggressive, I guess, for a father-son relationship. But as some of the coaches on here understand, that it's all about getting that extra edge.
Yeah, that's right.
Really help us, but we tried.
It happens. So when you take over your own program, what's it like to, build, install your like ways and culture and like put in your philosophy into that?
I think it's, again, luckily enough, I was able to coach under Coach Downey, so I had learned a lot. And, taking the bits and pieces from him, bits and pieces from my college coach, bits and pieces from other coaches helps.
Yeah.
But I also think there's, over time, now that I've been there for 5 years, you kind of develop your own philosophies along the way.
Yeah.
But I will say that it's exciting, it's rewarding, and the kids, I was lucky enough, and this wasn't unlike Charahoe, where the kids immediately bought in. Immediately. So to walk in, and this is a testament to Coach O'Malley that had them before me, to walk in and see the effort and the fight and the heart in these kids, it really wasn't that difficult. They really, and that group will always be special to me just because they were my first guys there.
Yeah.
But I guess in essence, it wasn't necessarily changing the culture, but it was getting the kids to buy into something that's a bit different than they're used to, and having them buy in right away.
Yes.
So how you get there is sometimes it's more than basketball. It's the team trips to your IPC game, or it's a team trip to, we went to see a Curry game, team trip bowling, whatever it is. Those are some of the things that, again, it's in coaching high school kids. I mean, we can go over X's and O's. I think all the coaches that listen, and they're part of your podcast get it. I mean, we all have certain sets that work really well and sets that don't, but it's outside of that. It's the relationships that we build with the kids. And luckily, that first group, those first group of kids that I had were tough, and they worked hard, and they made my job a lot easier.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And that's really cool that you do things like, I know I've done coaching in the past, but taking them to URI games, building those relationships outside of basketball, and that's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also an experience too, and we talk about it all the time. I think, we've struggled the last 2 years, and I think the hard part for us as coaches, I think we take it so hard that we want to make sure that's not reflective of how our kids feel. So in other words, we're fighting, we're hard, we might struggle a few games, but the reality is they still need an experience, especially the seniors.
Yeah.
They'll take with them forever, not just about the wins and losses.
Yeah, definitely. And eventually down the road, they could become coaches, and
you
guys are doing, and to pass it along the same method and everything like that.
And I'll tell you, I think the kids, and I still get texts, and I'm sure a lot of high school coaches do, all they look forward to is the Thanksgiving break so the alumni can come back and try to put a beat down on the varsity team. That seems, but then they always all come back out of shape, in my opinion, unless they're playing somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's always, they're good the first 5 minutes, and they might be hurt a little bit down the stretch.
Yeah. You get all like, I want to come back and play.
Of course, all the time. You got to get that text from all the alumni. We having it, coach. When we having it? Okay.
You're like, yeah, well, come to the freshman 15. You might be playing.
The COVID 15, man. I found it. You can see my chin right now on Zoom, man. I don't know what's going on.
Don't worry. I was down in Dallas. I found it big time when I was down there.
There you go. Okay.
Seeing a lot of barbecue.
There you go.
Yeah. So you also are an AAU coach. You work with the
Rhode Island Magic.
And how long have you been involved with them, and what's it like working with them?
I'll tell you, there's I know all AAU teams are different and groups are different. I think, and we talked about this earlier, where do you get your coaching style from? Where do you learn things? I mean, you're talking about a group of coaches that have been in the game for years, all ex-high school, ex-college. We have one of the coaches, Coach Billy, who coaches at Cranston West, who used to coach at Davidson under McKillop. So, these are the guys that, and we have Coach Tedeschi, who runs it, who was a Feinstein coach with a couple of titles. We have Coach Coleman, who's a high school coach. It's littered with so many coaches that are great resources for all of us to continue to pick each other's brains on how we do things. And I started there early on. I want to say my son Nathaniel was in 3rd or 4th grade when he started playing there, and have been part of the program ever since. I've been in and out because when both my sons play volleyball, it's hard for me to see all that, especially when they're Gabe's playing at college, and now Nathaniel's playing club at Stony Brook, so he's playing too. So it's it's hard to do that balance. But now I'm an empty nester, so I'm back in the mix. So there you go.
Keep yourself busy.
Yeah. So probably I would say for the last, since the inception of the Magic, I've been part of the program.
Wow, that's really
on and off. Yeah. Where they let me.
Like coaching AAU and coaching against guys you don't, around here in Rhode Island, we see same guys sometimes in the division. What's it like to coach against different states, different players from all different around? How do you prepare for something like that where it's just a one game kind of situation? Do you stick to your stuff, or do you make adjustments in between?
Yeah, I mean, I know you've coached in the past. You know how there's, it's, in high school, there's plenty. Well, not the way the structure of the broken down now with the interscholastic league, but you have the luxury of scouting a bit more.
Yeah.
And the reality is with AAU, especially, when you're playing unknown, part of the what I really like is the coaching on the fly, because you may not even recognize shooters. You don't recognize lefties, tendencies, defenses that they typically play. Even if you scout teams, especially some of the bigger programs, they might come with different kids. They may, so I would say from a coaching standpoint, there's a lot to be learned in that it is on the fly. Which also can be frustrating as well.
Yeah.
Because some of these teams, you don't know where these kids are coming from. So, you're assuming they're in the right age group.
Yeah.
I have mixed feelings about the whole thing. But I also think, as long as, the way we do it, and I think a lot of programs in Rhode Island do it well, where there is a fundamentals component to it and skills component to it, which is part of the curriculum each week. And then you move on to the next thing. But, it's a mixed bag, especially in coaching at AAU. It's, you only get the kids a couple hours a week, and then you're in the mix.
Yeah.
Versus 6 days a week.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a big difference from when you have a team all six days a week. You could run a bunch of things, install different things. Like you said, you can scout, you can prepare for the team, and then the 2 hours you're going right into against I don't know, you could be playing some team from Massachusetts that you don't know what they're going to throw at you or what's going to happen.
And especially when they show up in a bus with a Nike logo on the side that says sponsored by Nike.
Yeah,
those are always the good ones.
Yeah. I'm showing up.
Yeah, those are always kind of tough.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there you go. And I'm lucky enough because I'm actually working with Coach Coleman at Mount, an 8th grade team, which is an A team, and they are filthy good.
Really?
They're all coachable, and they're, some of the things they're doing it's just, again, you walk in and you're talking to some of these 8th graders that have been through all of those fundamental clinics and have worked on their fundamentals since 2nd or 3rd grade, and you're coaching basketball with 8th graders, which it's great. I mean, we still obviously do our skills work and fundamentals work, but the ability to say, all right, guys, run flex and they get in it, or run any wheel sets or motion sets, and you point them out once or twice and they immediately pick it up it's a luxury. Like,
that's really nice.
And you don't have to worry if they have detention or what I mean? They're missing an assignment. They're practice.
Yeah. All right. That's awesome. That's great. That's so cool. And then wrap it up with a couple more questions here. Sure. Have you heard anything from like the Rhode Island High School League? What's going to happen with basketball or anything like that? Or
I really haven't. I think we're hoping that we'll be good to go during the regular time. But I think just based on what you may have seen from some of the press from the Interscholastic League is a modified season with 4 seasons where we might start a little bit later. And one of the things that, to me, if that's what it takes to get the kids to play, then let's just do it.
Yeah,
exactly. That's, I mean, like it's challenging. It's not a great situation. However, if they come to us and say, all right, you can only play 8 weeks or 9 weeks, then we're going to play 8 weeks and 9 weeks and do what we have to. Like that's, obviously it's hard for the kids because, they want their full season, but, it's on the same token, if they're willing to be creative in how we get there to at least run and play and for the mental health of these kids to get out there, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
That's the reality behind it. So I guess the short answer is I don't know. I know, I mean, I've heard rumblings, but it changes every week. It's not unlike, every other sport. I mean, look at Connecticut. Football was on, then it was off, then it was on, then it was off,
Yeah.
The same thing. Like once we get closer, I think we'll get a better understanding.
Yeah, hopefully things work out. I've always said I just, I hope for, the senior sakes and everything like that, those kids that are finishing up their final year, like hopefully they can go out the way they want to go out and not be condemned by a virus and still at least have somewhat of a season, right? To finish out.
Yeah, like I think we were talking about earlier, it's, to watch my son work so hard at volleyball, lose his senior year, is devastating.
Yeah.
For the kids. And, and it's hard as a parent because you want to say, all right, well, this is a life lesson. You'll be better served maybe when you're older to understand adversity. Yeah, but that's not the mind of a 17-year-old that's, worked their butt off playing club, playing travel, and that's every sport, right?
Yeah.
That you're saying, okay, it's just been taken away from you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a tangible thing to grasp. It's hard. So yeah, no, I get it, man.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot.
Yeah, hopefully it all works out. We'll see what happens, and we'll definitely have to get you back on for your outlook on the season once everything gets confirmed.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would have me over Coach Battle and Martelli, no question.
Yeah,
I could bump Coach Cooley. You want Hurley on here too? You can bump him. You got it. I'm in the Prout School, baby.
Yeah, that's right. I'm choosing you over them.
Of course. Thank you. Yeah, no, sure. Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, last question. We'll wrap it up here.
Sure.
All right, are you a Celtics fan?
I am. What time is it?
They're playing now, I think, actually.
Oh, yeah. I'm killing you right now. Yeah.
We got to go. What's your thoughts? What do you think? Do you think they make
Heat are nasty?
Yeah.
Nasty. I think Jimmy Butler's filthy. That team is – I just don't like the matchup. I actually think the Heat are going to win. But I know. I don't want to say that.
Yeah.
But I have a hard time. I like basketball. Like, I love the game. I can watch teams play. And I definitely lean towards college games, which I just, I don't know, it's just a different game. And but because in NBA, they're all just filthy.
Yeah, they're all so good.
So good. It just, and I appreciate that, but it's also, they're so good that it's, it's just different. Like it's harder to watch. And I will say, I grew up a Lakers fan.
Okay.
But for my kids' sake, I grew up. My favorite player of all time was James Worthy.
Oh, really?
Oh, by far.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, James Worthy guy.
So do you think they come out of the West, the Lakers?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
do. I mean, the poor Clippers. I mean,
I'm,
one
I'm
is.
shocked that Denver beat them. I'm actually like,
I, I just don't. I mean, well, poor Doc Rivers.
yeah, I
Is
know.
that 3-1s now at this point?
I think so. Yeah, that's
Oh
like
boy,
three in like 10 years or something like
yeah,
that.
it's
Something crazy.
tough.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. I don't know what they're gonna do with him. I hope they keep him. He's a
Yeah,
great coach. I think he can handle big personalities very well. But it's tough when I don't know if you're not making adjustments. Or you're playing your players too much. They looked like they were gassed at one
yeah, they
point.
did.
Yeah,
But they also, well, I mean, and it's also the NBA.
yeah,
Like all those guys are ready to play no matter what.
yeah,
Right. And maybe you're right. Maybe it is substitution patterns, but I will say, I mean, it's any given night. It's not unlike all the professional sports.
yeah.
I mean, you can say that too about high school. Any given night, you never
Yeah,
know.
that's right. Yeah, yeah, that's very true. Anything can happen. Well, Coach Felicetti, this has been awesome. So much fun talking to you. I really enjoyed it. Just you're a great personal guy. Proud's really lucky to have you as a coach, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming season for you guys. And we definitely have to get you back on for the outlook of the season and everything like that.
Yeah, Jeff, I appreciate it again. And, I think what you're doing is super important for, I think not only your subscribers, but it's good for us coaches. And I think it's great for the kids. And I also think it's good for people to understand the commitment and the time that not only you put in, but the coaches and the players. And, so by bringing that forward through podcasting is very cool. Because I mean, especially with kids nowadays, who listens to the radio anymore?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they just want to listen to what they want to listen to. Like,
yeah, of course.
Yeah,
of
yeah.
course.
That's how I am too. I can't. Yeah. But yeah, no, thank you. I really appreciate the kind words, and that means a lot. Yeah, I'm trying to do something a little different and trying to get coaches and hopefully maybe some players on and talk to them maybe after
That'd be great.
stuff like that, just to get them also used to the media and everything.
Yep.
Like that. Yeah, so so it'd be cool. But yeah, Coach, anytime. I really appreciate it. This has been so much fun. You're awesome. You're great. I'll have to, anytime.
Thanks. Yeah, we got to get to, you got your coaching chops, so we could always use a hand. Come over to the Crusaders, baby.
Yeah,
Let's go.
You might have to pry me away from Coach Cobley, but
yeah, Coach Cobb. When are you having him on? He's got to be closer to the season, I assume.
Yeah, he said he wants to do close to the season. We talked about it already. He said,
listen, I would pay a subscription to hear him go, but it has to be rated explicit so I can hear the way he really talks. That's what I'm looking for.
I wish I had I could do a mic'd up thing with him coaching a game.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
It would last for about a day, and then we'd be fired, and so would you. So there you go.
He might chew on it, but he bites his thigh at the mic.
Yeah, that's it.
I can afford that. But
just hearing, what is that kid doing?
Yeah,
no, that's it.
Yeah, but that's he's a great guy. But yeah, I know. Well, I know I can come up and help out with anything that you guys need, anything like that. I'm definitely willing to be a part of it and help you guys out with anything. So
cool. Thanks again, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Coach. I really appreciate your time.
Great.
All right, have a good one.
You too.